Hey, what's going on? I'd like to dedicate this front wheel and fork removal video to Matt Knudsen of the OG Race Factory team. This video is brought to you by One Generation Insurance and OG Race Factory. So to take off this front wheel before we put it on the front stand, on a headlift stand, which I'm using today, because we're going to take the forks off, we're going to crack these bolts while it's more stable on the ground. So we'll crack that axle nut, the two pinch bolts, and then these two caliper bolts. Later, we're also going to loosen these uh, clamp bolts and the clip-on bolts that you see there. Just give you another view. We'll do the both on same thing on both sides. All right, so it's a 30 millimeter socket to crack that nut right there on the axle. And all I did was just crack it open just so it's loose so I don't rock it when it's already up on the stands. Now I'm going to loosen the pinch bolts on the right side. And with a 8 millimeter hex bit, I'm going to loosen these caliper bolts. I'm just cracking them loose. I'm going to loosen the pinch bolts there on that side. That's an 8 millimeter socket. And I went ahead and loosened these little fender bolts too, just while I'm at it. Just make it easier once I get it up there. So now everything's cracked open and loose. And I've lifted it by the head lift. And I've got my little impact there just to make pulling them out easier. There's two little spacers if you have the 330, the newer gen discs. And then here to get it, you just kind of wiggle it. There's a little tension because it's clipped into the fender, so I just pulled that out. It's just a little clip. You can just pull it out, squeeze the bottom. And you just kind of rock it just a little bit just to press the pads into the pistons and make a little bit of space, and you can wiggle it out there. There's a washer with that nut that comes off with the axle. Now I take off the other side, bolts, and I save the little spacers. Pull the axle out and the wheels out. And that's it for the wheel. If you're just swapping wheels, tires, that's all you need to do. And to install it, you can do it the reverse way. I hang my calipers up here out of the way with a little zip tie. You can do it how you want, or just leave them dangling. Different schools, different techniques. I'm not going to tell you what to do, what's right or what's wrong. You do whatever you feel is right. Now I'm taking the bolts out of the fender here. Be careful when you reinstall these bolts. Also, you've got the speed ABS sensor that's attached there to the fender. I got a 8 millimeter wrench on the back of that, and I believe a 3 millimeter T-handle. And then I take the bolts out of the fender there. Just the same as fairing mounting. Mine's all cracked up. Fairing mounting bolts. Now I've got a zip tie on the bottom there. That's attaching the speed sensor. You're going to need to pull this off. It's got a tiny little bolt on the front and back. It's either 3 millimeter or 2.5. I can't remember, whatever fits. And then you cut the zip tie that holds it to that top little attachment point. I put the nuts, these tiny little nuts, back in there, snug them up just so I don't lose them. If I put them somewhere else, I'm going to lose them. So I put them back off. I'm putting them back on. So I'm taking these forks off to be serviced, and I'm actually having a K-Tech DDS cartridges installed, as this is going to be a race bike, but you might just be getting service done. Whatever your reasons are, the wheel and forks are very easy to remove and install. So now we're going to go up here to the lower clamp. You see here, that's a 6 millimeter hex bit. I'm going to use my extension. It just helps with all the stuff in the way, the fairing stay. So I'm just going to crack those two, and I'm going to leave one of them, usually the upper one, whichever one you want, with a little bit of tension on it. And now I'm going to loosen the clip-on and the upper clamp. Come back down here, loosen all those up, And mine is a little bit tweaked from a previous wreck, so it does take a little bit of work, but you can see me working it left and right, twisting it to help it slide down. When you have it fully loose, it may slide down by itself. Usually there's a little bit of tension on there from the clip-on just hanging onto it. But that's why I leave this top one. I crack it open on the lower clamp, the top bolt on the lower clamp. I crack it open, but I leave it with a little bit of pressure. And now I loosen these up at the top all the way. But I keep that last bolt on the lower clamp with a little bit of pressure right there. Now it's fully loose. Just to hang on to it so it doesn't fall out before I'm ready. So now I'm ready. Everything's cracked loose, and I'm just going to wiggle it out. And that's it. Forks are off. Be careful with the bike on the stand. You've got no front wheel to catch it if that does fall off that headlift stand, and that headlift stand is a little fragile. Or, yeah, not fragile. But it can tip over. Whatever. Peace out.